Hey everybody, this is Mick Lebinskas here from She's Building a Robot. We are recording this video directly to the cloud that is behind Julie here. So it's going straight to the cloud. That is what the cloud is. You can see the data going up as we speak, straight out of Julie's finger. This is Julie Trell. Hi Julie, how you doing?
Hey Mick.
You're in sunny Sydney and I'm in rainy California. How does that work out? How did that happen?
We have flip-flopped.
We have flip-flopped. Thank you. Thanks to Annie Parker. We both of our flip-flopping is thanks to Annie Parker. So big thank you to Annie Parker. Julie moved from San Francisco to Sydney, and I moved from Sydney to San Francisco, which I think, I think Sydney got the better deal out of that. So, and you've got the better deal. I'm sitting here in rain, and you're sitting with sunshine and warm water. But Julie has had a wonderful career in technology and also does a lot of work in women entrepreneurship groups, including the main one being SheEO, which you're still a part of.
I'm still a part of, yes.
Can we start, Julie? Just what's your current role and company you work for?
Current company I work for, as because of you and Annie, is Miru D, which is an accelerator backed by Telstra. We work with tech startups that want to accelerate. We provide the resources, the expertise, mentors, network for them to be successful, and connect them also to Silicon Valley and to other people that are interested in what they're building and how they're building it.
And your role there is an API.
My role there is human API, head of it all.
Yep.
My role is to get the blockers out of my team, get the blockers out of the way so my team can be successful.
Connecting things and people, yeah. Excellent. So you have done a bunch of different things in tech. How did you, can I start with, do you remember your first experience with technology? Like, was it coding at school or a home computer or, I don't know. Can you tell me about that?
So it was I think it was a weekend class at UConn, University of Connecticut, where my mom sent me and we learned Logo and BASIC.
Nice.
And I remember programming the different, like the 3-line code of like 10 quotes, print this. And I think I had like, I love Bobby Kennedy or something like that, who was my second grade crush.
Nice.
And I'll send this video to him. And then, print, repeat, and then I'd have it show up all over the screen.
Right.
And then growing up, we had a Commodore 64 and subscribing to the magazine and copying all of the games in there.
Yep.
And if it didn't work, you had to go back and through every little, was it a colon? Was it here? Did I spell this wrong? And so I remember that.
Cool. Excellent. But you didn't go immediately from that Commodore 64 into the world of tech. Can you tell us about your wonderfully meandering journey to get to the world of tech?
That's a good question. So I've always loved technology, although I remember struggling word processes and using a word processor like the Commodore 64. Parents, we got you this computer, figure out how to use the printing, and it was always
desktop publishing back in the day and trying to print on a It
wasn't even the dot matrix.
Yeah.
And then I don't know. I don't remember because they didn't have really the internet when I was in college, but I did go down and type up. I used to type up the desktop publishing got a little bit better in the 90s, early 90s.
Yeah.
And I would do the sorority newsletter, and I would have a lot of fun changing fonts and doing all that. And I probably had to put things on a floppy disk.
Yep. So we're going a little bit robotic here.
Put things on a floppy disk and go to Kinko's to print it out.
Okay.
Check outside. My computer might be too hot.
Whoops. Okay, you've gone a little bit robotic. Just hold on a second and we will try to get the picture back. So everyone, we had to move inside because the weather is so good in Sydney that Julie's computer got too hot, which is it's so sad for you. That's just such a terrible reason. My computer did not get too hot. In fact, it may have icicles on it. So, but Julie, you were telling me about you always loved technology, but you did the desktop publishing at college and changed the fonts. But your first role out of university was as a school teacher.
I was a waitress, and then I got into teaching. I was a classroom teacher in inner city Atlanta, which was extremely challenging. And then I did a workshop up at Kennesaw State University about how to integrate technology into the classroom.
Awesome.
And it was like the light bulb went off again for me. It was all Macs, and they were teaching us how to use the computer as a tool, not as you finished your homework, go play on the computer.
Yep.
And this was eye-opening for me. And challenging environment, inner city Atlanta, having access to computers in the classroom was huge. And I used to have the kids rewrite and make up their own parody of The Very Hungry Caterpillar, and then they would type it up and print it out, and we would make books out of collages. And then I somehow talked my way into becoming a technology specialist in a middle school.
Cool.
I had never done it before. I didn't have any formal training. Apparently the woman before me was like, everyone's saying there's big shoes for you to fill. I keep having to fill big shoes or flip-flops. This is also a path. And I just remember telling the principal, who was new, because there's a lot of troubleshooting and fixing of the computers. By the way, they were all Apple IIes before I got in there.
Nice.
But I had to figure out and Ethernet, get the Ethernet into these Mac 575s. And I said, I like to believe I learn quickly. And so I just remember saying that. I'm like, how did I get this job? So I said, I can do things quickly, I can troubleshoot. And I remember learning every day on the job. I could feel the synapses in my head forming. Yep. When there was a sad Mac on one of the computers, how do I fix it? I would go to sleep and think about it. And, so I was able to do a lot of troubleshooting, and that was really exciting for me. I remember I was a rogue technology specialist. The county I was in was very lucky that there was one tech specialist per school versus like a random teacher fixing things. Okay. And because of the lottery, and all these computers would show up, and they were sitting in my hallways, and they're like, don't set them up. You can't do anything until you get the training. I said, I can't have these computers sitting here. That's not fair. I have to get them unboxed and set up with the servers and everything. And the specialists there were like, okay. And then like, just tell us what you did so we can like replicate it.
Yeah.
But it was so important that these computers were used as tools that I needed to get them up and running, not waiting for, bureaucracy to happen.
Yeah.
So.
It's really interesting. Tell me if you want to go into it or not, but there's a bit of a generalization around it in some of the research about differences in gender. And one of them is that men will look at a role and say, I can do a lot of that. Sure, I'll give it a go. Where women might say, again, generalization, I can only do 90% of it, so I won't apply. But you seem to step out of your comfort zone pretty regularly. Do you attribute that to something? Is that in your nature? Did that come from somewhere?
It's a good question. So first of all of the tech specialists in the school system, we were all women. The techs were men. And I never really, nothing, but I never really occurred to me. But that story, when this job came up, I went through that. I did go, I can't do all that. I've never started my own company. It's not fair for me to run an accelerator if I've not been a founder. And I had that story in my head. I'm like, if men can do this, so can I. Yeah. Men can have that, I only have 50% of what's required. So that was something that I, had a conversation with myself and said, do this. And I had a conversation with Annie, and the rest is relatively history.
Sure.
But and I've also had men come in and try and apply for jobs which they really weren't suited for, but I give them a lot of credit, and women credit for stepping up and asking. I think that's really important.
Yeah.
I've also, because I've shifted there as well, when women or people ask for have these crazy asks, I give credit for asking, for that ridiculous salary. Like, at least you're asking, but then it teaches me then the power to say no.
Sure.
Or thank you.
Yeah. So, and you went from that. How did you go from there to Salesforce? That's a pretty big step.
Another serendipity thing. I had met Mark Benioff in Israel in '98, and he knew he wanted to start a company that was going to sell software over the web. This was before SaaS and cloud was even invented. And that was cool. But what was really cooler for me was he wanted to also bridge the digital divide, which was making sure that schools got technology where they needed it. And I didn't know really what I was talking about. I mean, I knew what I was passionate about, but I didn't know who he was or enterprise software or all of this corporate stuff. And I said, Mark, if you're going to deal with kids and technology, you need to hire teachers. Don't just be a company that gives away money. Mm-hmm. did I know that was my interview, and he says, "Why don't you move out to San Francisco?
Wow.
I'm starting a foundation."
Awesome.
It wasn't. I really didn't know any better. It was just like I tapped into what I believed, and I said, "It doesn't hurt." That never hurts to ask. That's also been something that I've subscribed to.
Yeah. And so you were a part of Salesforce.org. Some people think, oh, that's the PR side attached to a big money making machine. Were they genuine about it? Was it authentic?
100%. Mark believed in it. That's why he wanted to start it from the get-go, from the beginning, to make it part of the culture. And he learned about that from his time at Oracle. And there's a funny story about that, with him calling up Colin Powell because he promised all these computers to the schools in DC, and it was the end of the month, and salespeople aren't going to come out and volunteer at the end of the month and the hottest day of the year because they have quotas. So he calls up Colin Powell, says, "Look, I'll help you." And then 5 minutes later, the National Guard shows up to help install them. So that was an aha moment for Mark, saying, I need to start this from the beginning to make sure this is part of the culture. And It absolutely is. Okay. I mean, don't get me wrong. There is some good conversation, good some play, good some PR with it, but he's very much committed. And there is a culture of it still at Salesforce 18 years later.
Yeah, that's awesome. Salesforce, like, you were there through a whole lot of growth. What was it like, small, medium, and big? Like, can tell us some of the differences.
Yeah, so I was there earlier, in 2000, where before custom objects, if anyone knows Salesforce, you couldn't change all of the tags. Yeah. It was also, we used to call SneakerNet. If you needed something done, you would walk over to IT and they would, fix things. And, you knew everyone. But it was still a culture of a very social culture, both online in the cloud and as well as in the company. And building, what I also loved is Salesforce used its tools for everything, for hiring, for IT tickets. I helped build, so here's something where I got into the tech side of things. I tapped into a lot of the developers because they really, how can we help you? We really love the foundation. And I asked for personal growth or professional growth. How do I build an app? How do I build something on Salesforce? What's the process that you made to make a product? So Mark Abramowitz, who was there at the time, and he sat me down and was like, "You make user stories, and this is what user stories are all about." And I learned we were doing Agile and Scrum to help build Volunteer Force. So that Volunteer Force was built right at the first custom object, which was really exciting. It's still there. And I still use that, the whole user stories and product building, when I have to put out an RFP for a product that I need to get implemented for whatever role that I'm in. And this is what I want this user to do. So when I go to a product company that I want to use, they're a little afraid of me because I'm like, this is what I want them to do. Can it do all this?
That's awesome. That's good. You've got such amazing diversity. I'd love to understand, you've made a move from more execution to leadership, and definitely now in terms of running Muru-D, and you're doing execution across a whole lot of different technologies. How do you, how do you feel about keeping up with the pace of technology these days as a leader of people? Like, 'cause I think that complexity and conflict is wonderful but hard.
Yeah, people are awesome and people are tough. Yeah. It's a lot of listening. It's a lot of holding space and listening and understanding not everyone thinks the same way. And as a leader, making sure that your role is to get blockers out of the way and let people do what they need to do. Sometimes it's easier said than done. And letting go is another big lesson of learning. And knowing enough to be dangerous, to speak some of the language and let the experts step in. So I know, like, that story in my head, like, I've never been a founder, but I know people who have, and I can connect the right people, and being okay with that and recognizing that is a very strong skill. And, as a leader also, there's a lot of times we're like, what the hell are we doing? What the hell am I doing? I have that voice. I joke about her all the time. I've named her. Her name is Beatrice. And Beatrice shows up often. Annie's ready to, shoot Beatrice, but she's helpful in a way to protect yourself. Yeah. Then I have another name of someone like that empowering side, which should be Julie, but it's no, I forgot her name, Miriam, from there's a new favorite show that I watch. Okay. Midge.
Oh, from Mrs. Maisel.
Love that show. I think she's amazing.
It's awesome.
Anyway. So yeah, being a leader. It's, but I still get to be in the tech space, have a conversation, dance around the technology, learn from younger people, the new technologies that are coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them scare me, some of them excite me, some of them inspire me.
Yeah. Wow, that's fantastic. We mentioned SheEO at the start. Can you give us a quick introduction of what SheEO is about and what their mission is?
So SheEO is started in Canada. It's a new model to help change the way the capital flows, especially to female entrepreneurs. So the goal is to get 1,000 women or 500 women to contribute $1,100. So a $500,000 fund that gets loaned out to female entrepreneurs, selected by the women that have contributed. So it's kind of like a gateway drug to investing, where you learn and look at and build and support and become mentors to companies that you are excited about. Okay. Or if you're building a company, you have this massive, amazing network. And I helped launch it in both the US and Australia.
Fantastic. How many members do they have now?
We are below our number right now. We're about 200. So invitations are still opening. We have 75 amazing companies that have applied. Voting starts in a week and a half. So if you want to get in and do some of the voting of the first round, please activate. Here.
Fantastic.
Here's the URL.
We'll add the URL in the show notes. That's awesome. And do you, if harking back, and I know you do a lot of work with young entrepreneurs, but if there's young females in their teens who are thinking about a life or career in technology, do you have any tips or advice that you would give them?
Yeah, well, I actually want to create a whole program around teens and advice. I want to create an organization called Kidsultants, where instead of adults helping kids with their homework, kids helping adults with their corporate work, because there's a lot of power in it. I've watched it. If you come up and say, here, this is what I believe, this is what I think, don't be afraid of asking that question. Don't be afraid of going, hashtag it never hurts to ask is one of the things that I've learned, and things have showed up because of it. So women reach out to me all the time saying, how did you get in your role? And they reach out and I write a personal LinkedIn or email, and I will always respond and make time for that, because they've taken the time to do their homework, to ask a very pointed question. And then I also learn most of the time. It's like I get more out of it than they do. Yeah. Awesome.
That's excellent. Well, thank you so much for sharing and supporting. Again, this is an interview as a part of my book, She's Building a Robot. You can go to shesbuildingarobot.com. That'll be in the show notes as well. Thank you, Julie, for supporting me and for driving so hard in terms of growing both the entrepreneurship world in Australia, but also the women in tech and entrepreneurship world around the world. So thank you very much for your support, and keep enjoying that wonderful sunshine.
And I want to thank you for being such a great champion for all of us, for young, old, women, men, and becoming entrepreneurs and being a leader as a champion, especially for women. Good mom.
Dad of two girls, but I also say I'm a dad of a boy as well, and I think men often overlook their leadership roles of their sons. I think that's how we break a lot of those cycles is good generational change. So fingers crossed. So thank you, Julie.
Thank you.